Hi, I'm Steve Murphy, and welcome to the Insider Exclusive. Today we are featuring Southern California's premier law firm series with a law firm of Pierce & Weiss. Stay tuned. You're going to love this show.
What you have often is where an individual or an employee sees that he's going to be let go, and before he gets fired, he'll go and come and file a claim. Oh, my back hurts me, or I hurt my knee, and there are no witnesses to it, and I'm filing a claim and I want to go get treatment. If the employers don't take an aggressive approach on fighting the claim, word gets out to the other employees. They start filing claims, and it's Christmas in July.
Jeff is very good at this.
Yes.
Very good at this. He knows what I want.
Yes.
And I seek results very aggressively.
I went the extra mile, which is what I like to do in jury trials. We had formulas, we had charts, we had graphs, and the jury was on the edge of their seats. That's what you want to do. You want the jury to lean forward in their seats. You want them to listen to your story.
When my case had started, I was beat up so bad for like the first 3 days, and then once Dave started talking, it was the jury. It looked like they were in a classroom. They listened to every expert witness we had.
Thanks to David, we returned to our sanity, my wife and I. David was a lot more than a lawyer to us. He was a friend, he was a person who felt for us, and he gave us emotional support too. He was also, even though we were in such dire straits, he never took advantage of us financially. He charged us a fair price and did a great job.
And one of my first guests, a co-founder, Dave Pierce, is with us. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Steve.
You are kind of an expert in the construction field, aren't you? You do a lot of cases there, don't you?
I do.
For contractors and developers. Tell us a little bit about, if I'm a homeowner, what I should be looking for when I'm dealing with a contractor.
Is he licensed? Meaning, is he insurable?
Right.
And what type of documentation is he presenting you?
Well, let me ask you a question, because I've run into situations where I've asked someone whether they have a license, and they've shown me something, but don't they expire after a while?
They do, but you can check the Contractors State Licensing Board. There's a website, and you can check the current status. Also, you can call. There's one in Van Nuys. You can just call the number.
So being a licensed contractor really shows you can do quality work. Is that right?
Well, in fact, that's not the issue.
Okay.
The issue is insurability, experience, and referrals. So you want to look to the contractor's work, look at his prior work, get referrals from other people, and really whether a contractor's licensed or not does not really go to the quality of his work. But one thing I'd like to caution your listeners is that in California, the state law is very pro-homeowner when it comes to the licensing of a contractor. So
you're already one step ahead if you have a problem.
You're one step ahead, and if you have a dispute with a contractor, that contractor better make sure that he's licensed.
Yes.
Because otherwise the homeowner can refuse to pay, and no court in this state will enforce that against the contractor.
You know, I've seen on TV various shows where contractors ripped off homeowners, and usually they signed a contract and they required them to place a really large, deposit, maybe 50% of the contract. What is the law in California for all of our viewers so they know that when a contractor, they sign an agreement with them, what is the maximum they can ask for right then and there?
Well, they should not ask for more than 10% up front.
They should not ask, or what's the law?
The law is that they cannot ask for more than that unless the homeowner is going to agree to it. Two parties can contract in California and it's enforceable. However, you should always set forth a payment schedule so that the work coincides with the payments or vice versa. That protects both parties.
It's like progress payments, right?
It is progress payments.
And that way you can check on somebody.
That's right. And also, you shouldn't make the final 10% payment to the contractor until, if permits are required, you get the final sign-off and the homeowner has walked the site, made their final pickup list, and that has been corrected by the contractor.
Everybody can write their own contract.
Sure.
Is there a standard contract that a homeowner like myself can download from the internet, let's say, so that that protects me?
There is. It's an AIA 101 and 201 contract. That's the standard contract. It's the first part of that is very short and
Yes.
concise, and then the second part of that is a rather lengthy terms and conditions.
Okay, and you can download this anywhere on the site, on the internet?
You can. You do not need something so involved. There are a couple of terms and conditions I would caution both the homeowner and the contractor to
Yes.
look for in a contract.
Right.
And that is an arbitration clause. So for instance, if you enter into a contract, you better make sure that if there is an arbitration clause, should a dispute arise, that you are willing to participate in arbitration, because
So what you're recommending is don't have that arbitration clause in there.
I am. Arbitration lives up to its namesake. It's arbitrary
Right.
and capricious.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is that arbitrators are typically retired judges or just a licensed practicing attorney. And once the arbitration process starts, if it's not concluded in a timely fashion, it can go on for months.
No kidding.
And that can be very expensive. It's cost prohibitive, in fact, when the homeowners and contractors alike think the opposite is true.
Right. Now you represent a lot of homeowners. You also represent a lot of contractors, right?
Yes, I do.
And later on this show, we're going to bring some people, some of your clients, to the show that you've successfully helped so they can actually tell their story and what you did for them, okay?
Yes.
But right now, I want to go to your co-founder, Jeff Weiss. So we're going to join him right now.
Great.
And I'm pleased to present the other co-founder, Jeff Weiss.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You have a specialized practice, which is workman's compensation,
That's
right?
correct.
And you represent a lot of businesses.
That is correct.
Can you tell our audience exactly, what do you do exactly when you get involved with many of these
Okay,
cases?
well, first of all, I represent a large cross-section of industries and businesses in the state. And what we do is we represent the employers when an employee files a workers' comp claim. And typically it's a fraudulent claim or a case that is complex and requires a lot of attention to detail and to navigate the waters in the myriad of the laws that are presented there.
So if you're a business executive right now that runs a company,
Right.
And you have a problem with one of your employees,
Yes.
you'd be a good person to come to, right?
I'd be the guy.
I understand you have 2 offices, one in LA, correct?
Yes, and one in Anaheim.
One in Anaheim, and more than 20 attorneys, right?
Yes.
You mentioned something interesting about a lot of the times that people come to you or come to the companies and they file false claims. What are those typical false claims?
Okay, what you have often is where an individual or an employee sees that he's going to be let go. And before he gets fired, he'll go and come and file a claim, oh, my back hurts me, or I hurt my knee, and there are no witnesses to it, and I'm filing a claim and I want to go get treatment. And the applicant's attorneys, they take their cases in mass. So they
Yes.
don't really do their due diligence, and they'll just take the case and refer it out to doctors. And what'll happen is that the medical bills really start adding up, and it becomes a financial drain on the employer if they don't fight the claim.
Right.
And even worse than that, if the employers don't take an aggressive approach on fighting the claim, word gets out to the other employees.
And they start filing claims.
They start filing claims, and it's Christmas in July.
What kind of aggressive approach should a businessman, an executive at a firm where one person has filed a claim, what kind of approach should they take?
Well, first they need to do an investigation. They
Yeah.
need to determine whether there's any validity to the claim.
Should they make some of this information public? Because, you know, employees talk.
Well, I think the fact that an investigation is going forward and they see that the employer is taking an aggressive position, that they're not going to take it lying down, they're going to examine the
Yeah.
claim, then word gets out, really shouldn't be filing these claims unless there's some truth to it.
This is an internal investigation.
Correct.
So, for example, one of the corporate officers start going around and asking, did you see John fall, right?
Well, it won't necessarily be a corporate officer. They'll have someone from the Human Resource Department,
Okay.
or they'll bring in
Call
they'll bring in an outside investigation company to do that. And I work with the investigation company to tailor the scope of the investigation.
In the industries that you represent, for example, police and fire,
Yes.
municipalities, you
Right.
represent hospitals, are there certain kinds of complaints or claims that are filed that are indicative and unique to each one of these industries?
Well, exactly. Each industry would present its own unique claims. For example, a police officer, you're going to have a lot of back and knee injuries.
These are legitimate, aren't they?
Some of them, yes.
Yes.
I mean, those that are legitimate, what we do is we make sure that the individual gets all the benefits that the law allows, but we don't allow them to broaden the reach of what they're entitled to.
They want more money, in other words.
Well, we all want more money, but
Yeah.
they have to earn it. They can't get it from the employer incorrectly.
What about some other industries like the health industry and that sort of thing?
Well, it depends. Nurses and therapists, you're going to see a lot of low back injuries and maybe some injuries to the wrists and to the elbows from lifting patients
Right.
and doing paperwork. So you're going to see a lot of injuries like that.
For all business executives watching this show today, do you have 3 important recommendations for them to reduce the number of claims that they may have filed in workman's comp?
Absolutely. First is make sure that the work areas are ergonomically designed so that you can prevent injuries from taking place. Second, have a proper reporting system so that when an individual does sustain an injury, it's reported immediately, they get immediate care, and you can probably short-circuit the entire explosion of the work comp claim. They don't have to get an attorney if they see that you're handling it properly.
Yes.
Then the third is be aggressive. If you see that there's an individual that is truly taking the case and blowing it out of proportion, be aggressive and send the message that we're going to be fair to those claims that are legitimate, but those claims that are not, we're going to fight you.
When does that employee know that the company has hired a law firm to handle this sort of thing? When they get sued?
Well, they don't get sued. They're the one that files the claim with an attorney, and that's when the case will come to
That's
me.
when you come
That's
in.
when I come in, and
Okay.
I immediately file an answer, and I'll schedule a deposition. I'll take the steps necessary to protect the company.
One of the things that everybody always looks to is successful clients that you've represented, and we're going to have one on the show here
Yes.
in a little bit. So
Yes.
I'm going to go back to David here,
Okay.
and thank you. We'll be back shortly.
Thank you.
One of the great things about our shows is the attorneys actually bring their clients that they've had some great success with. And today I'm pleased to have Stephen Kopoloff, right?
Hi, yes.
How are you?
Fine, thanks. And
Today
yourself?
you were okay.
I am today.
I understand you're a homeowner. You had a home in Pacific Palisades,
Yes,
correct?
that's right.
And you had a nightmare happen to you with your contractor.
Yes,
Tell
I
our
did.
audience a little bit about that.
I was doing a remodel, and part of the remodel was to make a little bigger backyard.
Yes.
So the contractor I chose, which came recommended, and I checked references, excavated a hillside behind me. And little did I know he was incompetent, had never done it before, and he ended up collapsing the hillside into my house.
So basically you wanted your house improved and you got it destroyed.
Yes, he basically destroyed my house.
What did you do?
Well, I terminated him, and then I tried to find a lawyer right away. And the interesting thing was, I found a lawyer, very highly recommended, who had a lot of experience, and we started out with the lawsuit. And what happened is, it got a little complicated.
Right.
So the lawyer bailed on me and fired me as a client, even though I'd done nothing wrong.
So here you have a contractor destroys your house. Your first lawyer you go to, this is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Your first lawyer you go to fires you as a client, and then how did you find Dave?
Well, I spoke to some friends of mine who were attorneys, and they, on my behalf, called the Bar Association, plus they called a lot of their friends, and they triangulated on David. And there was a couple folks in David's category, and I
Yes.
interviewed them, but I felt he was the best.
When he came to you,
Yeah.
Dave, with this nightmare of a story, what'd you do?
It was very complicated, as you just heard. Plus, Steve was in dire straits. He's being modest in his story because what happened is the hillside actually collapsed during a rainstorm, and mud flooded into his home. So it was virtually unusable.
Where were you living during this time?
I had to move in with my mother-in-law. That wasn't fun.
Did you guys get along?
We got along okay, but it took another 2.25 years. So,
disaster.
yeah, two years is a long time to live out of your home while they mitigated. And by the way, something else I would mention that I think is important
Yes.
is that, so along the way I had to find another contractor to help mitigate the damages from the first contractor.
Right, and you did your research.
This time, oh, I did better than research. I found the guy who had a perfect record, who was doing very nice Beverly Hills homes and was honest. He took my money and he fled.
You know,
He took money and fled and ran to Montana. And in the final, then I had to hire a third contractor. And in the lawsuit,
yeah.
David literally found this guy in Montana and did a deposition on him.
You got a judgment. You went to jury trial, right?
We did. We had to go through an entire jury trial. We picked the jury. We got the evidence in that we wanted, and we were able to keep the evidence out, which is all we can do as lawyers during the pendency of a trial.
Yes.
And it went through to verdict, and favorable for Steve.
One of the things that comes to my mind whenever you're talking about a contractor, you did a lot of due diligence, right? And you thought you found the right people. You got the right recommendations.
So I thought.
Let's say they don't do a good job. You know, your house was a disaster in the whole time, 9 yards. How do you recover against a contractor if they don't have the financial wherewithal?
Well, this comes into the insurance picture. You really need to check whether the contractor's licensed
Yes.
and whether they have insurance. A bond is not enough.
How much insurance should they have?
Well, they should have $1 million. That's really
At least
what
$1
they
million.
should have.
I also understand once you got the judgment, you had to fight for the money then too.
We did. After the verdict,
There was no easy thing here, was there?
no, and that's always something that
Yeah.
you know people may not be aware of. After you get a verdict, if you win, the other
Gotta
side
collect.
is going. You got to collect, and the other side's going to negotiate because they're going to say, "Hey, we're going to appeal."
Yes. So you're good at collecting the money too.
We have to.
And that's what makes him a good lawyer. You know, not only knowing when to settle, how to settle, but being realistic. And I'm glad your story finally ended up good. Is your house okay today?
My house is fine, and thanks to David, we returned to our sanity, my wife and I. David was a lot more than a lawyer to us. He was a friend. He was a person who felt for us, and he gave us emotional support too. And he was also, even though we were in such dire straits, he never took advantage of us financially. He charged us a fair price and
Yes.
did a great job.
You are saying this from your heart.
That's right.
And I'm glad that I'm doing this show for Dave and his partner, because we need people and we need lawyers like you, Dave,
For sure.
to help the homeowners out there who have a lot of fraudulent activity, you know, found against them. Okay? So
Right.
thank you for being
My
honest.
pleasure.
And someday we'll run into each other again.
Hopefully not under construction.
No, believe me, we won't.
That's true. Thanks a lot, Steve.
Dave's firm also represents a lot of contractors because some of them have problems with homeowners. And today I have Pete Trigg, an
Yes.
engineering contractor who was kind enough to join us on our show. Tell us how you and Dave met.
A homeowner was suing me for some work that I had done,
Yes.
and Dave represented me, and it was the best because he just knew everything about the type of work that I did.
Okay, Dave, what were the details of this lawsuit?
Well, Pete runs a excavation and shoring business, and he has the big rigs that drop 8,000-pound weights onto pile drivers and
Right.
pounds them into the ground.
The caisson.
Caissons.
Yeah.
And they hadn't, the homeowner that ended up suing wasn't even the homeowner that hired him. It was the adjacent property owner in Santa Monica. The lots are very small.
Right.
And when Pete's rig started pounding this caisson into the ground, homeowners came out like ants. The sky is falling. And that's how the lawsuit ensued.
So the neighbor was complaining that you had upset his geological makeup in his lot.
Basically, I destroyed his whole home.
Was the home destroyed?
No,
Not at all.
nothing.
They had a plaster versus drywall
Yeah.
interior, so they're very brittle.
Yeah.
And there were lots of cracks in the home, and they were claiming that Pete's work did that.
Well, how could you disprove that, by the way? I mean, they could have, maybe they had those cracks from the earthquake. How did you disprove it?
That's exactly what we had to do. That's what our burden was. And we had to show that not only wasn't it caused by that, but I went the extra mile, which is what I like to do in jury trials,
Yes.
is prove what in fact caused the cracks. And that's what we did through our experts.
Yeah.
The amount of earth movement dissipates over a distance. We had formulas, we had charts, we had graphs,
Wow.
and the jury was on the edge of their seats with this professorial
It's like the
teaching.
Discovery Channel.
It was great. I mean, that's what you want to do. You
Yeah.
want the jury to lean forward in their seats. You want them to listen to your story.
Well, that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
he had a good result. So you'd recommend him to any contractor who had a problem.
Yes, and I actually used him again on another problem I had.
What other problem
Same-
was that?
Same shoring,
Same thing, huh?
same thing.
Well, congratulations, because
Yes.
you came here today because Dave got a great job for you.
Yes, and I hope I don't have to use him ever again, but he did so far 2 jobs for me, and he won them both, and it was the best.
When you see him in the courtroom and you see him in front of the jury, what do you think? Persuasive,
Yes,
got his
well,
act together.
That was the one thing. When my case had started, I was beat up so bad for like the first 3 days, and then once Dave started talking, it was the jury. It looked like they were in a classroom. They listened to every witness, every expert witness we had.
Good. Thank God for jury trials. Thank you for being with us. I really appreciate it. One of the other big areas that this firm practices in is workers' compensation. And today we have the expert in the field, Jeff, with us.
Correct.
Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
And you brought with us one of your clients, and you just don't have one problem. You've got tons of problems, don't
Several
you?
problems,
And
yes.
I'm glad you showed up. So tell us about your problems.
Well, there are problems with workers' compensation, especially on the severity of the claims.
What were some of those claims?
Well, some of the claims which are very difficult are the back claims, for example, because back claims are very subjective. And to mitigate the cost of those claims, it's very difficult.
And a lot of employees know that, don't
A
they?
lot of employees know because of the TV ads.
Yes. You know, I noticed when I was shaking your hand, my back started hurting a little bit. You think there's any relation there?
Go to the doctor.
We've got a lot of lawyers out there who are contingency lawyers.
Correct.
Who are taking, let's say, frivolous lawsuit claims, filing them against a company. How do you handle that?
These lawyers seek to have their opponent just get rid of it for nuisance value.
Write a check.
That's how they'll make their money in volume. When they see someone like me or my firm on the case, they know right away they're going to have to earn their fee. It's going to be fought because I'm not going to give in on a nonsense case.
We had one of David's clients that was in here, and he was talking about David won, both his cases for him, but his insurance went through the roof. And that's one of the things that a company really has to look at. If they have a lot of claims being filed against them, their insurance goes up. By bringing in experienced lawyers like
Exactly.
Dave and Jeff, does that reduce or limit?
Well, certainly because the experience modification is what drives the cost of insurance up. But we really believe in an aggressive form of mitigating these injuries.
You're going to fight every battle.
Oh yeah,
Right.
and
So that sends a message, doesn't it?
well, it does, and Jeff is very good at this.
Yes.
Very good at this.
It looks very
And
intimidating.
We have,
I'm a pussy.
well, we have a good relationship, and he knows what I want,
Yes.
and I seek results,
Yeah.
and very aggressively.
Here's a question. There's a lot of lawyers out there,
Yes.
that handle this type of practice.
Yes.
How did you find Jeff's firm?
Well, I think you found us first,
Okay.
because I think I came to our office, and I met him 10 years ago. That was the first time I met him. And I think we hit it off right away, and
Yes.
he knew what I wanted, and
Mhm.
I thought he was the type of attorney that I would want to deal with, because we want to aggressively seek settlement in these cases.
Sure.
Don't want to pay these things off. And they're very difficult cases,
Yes.
sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
So, yeah, and we work very well.
Well,
And just to put a bow on that box, when I first started working for Carl's company, they had on average 40 to 50 claims filed a year, and their insurance premiums went sky high, and the costs, including the downtime and the investigation costs, was just astronomical and was a drain financially for the company. And within a year or two, we got the number of claims down to about 10 to 12 a year.
Wow.
We cut the costs in half, and that included my fees. So we were able to put in a program, Carl and I were able to put in a program where we worked hand in glove, the attorney and the company,
yes.
to show the employees that
Yeah.
we're not going to tolerate fraudulent claims, we're going to fight the claims that are being filed, and the people stopped filing claims.
Well, I want to thank you very much for being on the show, taking your time to come here, because you represent, a major company, and you have selected Jeff to handle a lot of your claims, and he's done real well for you, and I think our audience will identify with that. So thank you for joining
Thank you.
us, and I
Thank you for
appreciate you
having me.
coming here. We've been fortunate to have some of your clients come in here and tell how great lawyers you are, you know, and I see right now, if I had a problem with my home in a construction dispute, I'd definitely call you, because some of the things you've done. Same thing with workers' compensation. But as we think back on the clients that came in here and they're satisfied, what other comments can you tell our audience that they should look for, you know, when they're hiring a contractor, for example?
Well, you need to look at the detail that's in the contract,
Mm-hmm.
because the more detail, the better. That's where contractors and homeowners alike get into trouble.
Yes.
Change orders, it's expensive, and if the job constantly changes, both sides get in trouble.
Now, businesses were watching this show and they saw that workers' compensation is a big problem, isn't it?
Oh, it's huge.
And we live in a state which is very pro-employee, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's
So
a
that's-
tremendous drain on the finances of a company.
When you go, both of you, when you get in front of a jury, right, they honestly look at the evidence and the scientific evidence that you bring to them so they can decide what's real and what's not real, don't they?
They do, and it's believability, and from a jury perspective, it's really important to endear yourself to a
Yeah.
jury. You're storytelling, and you have to take the opportunity to crack a joke,
Yes.
have a little fun in the courtroom so everyone's a little more comfortable, and that's what it's all about. It's making and establishing a relationship in a relatively short period of time.
Do you find that also true in your workers' compensation
In
cases?
my venue, we deal with the same judges in the same courtrooms over and over. So, and by me, credibility is the big issue.
So you're dealing primarily with a specific judge,
Yes. So
not
so-
necessarily with a
not-
jury.
No, we don't use juries. We have administrative law judges.
Okay.
So when they know me, they have to know that I'm credible, that I'm honest, and that I don't bring frivolous cases just because I can bring them. I'm fighting a very legitimate claim against a bogus workers' comp allegation.
Now, most importantly, when someone comes to see you, whether they're a business person or an individual, contractor, homeowner, you have a free consultation just to hear what the problem is, right?
We do.
Of course.
We have a standing 1 hour. First consultation is free.
I read in your bios, I think your bio, you were selected by your peers as a super lawyer for the last couple of years.
Yes.
And for our audience who don't know what that means exactly, that means your peers have selected lawyers, other lawyers have selected you as excellent lawyers.
Right. It's the top 5%
Yes.
in Southern California.
So you've heard it from the clients, you've heard it from the lawyers, and I want to thank you very much for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to doing other shows.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for being with us, and you can catch more of these shows at www.insiderexclusive.com. We'll see you next time.